What if I told you the Battle of Britain was almost lost, not because German pilots were better, but because British pilots were dying blind? What if the RAV's biggest killer wasn't the Bf-109, but a 90-degree blind spot built into their own aircraft? And what if the miracle that saved them, the one invention that stopped Britain from collapsing, cost only 11 shillings, weighed 4 ounces, and was built by a man the experts laughed at? This is the forgotten story of Frederick George Miles and the tiny scrap of fabric that saved an empire. Summer 1940. The Battle of Britain is at its breaking point. In just 4 months, RAF Fighter Command loses 1,547 aircraft. German Bf-109s are responsible for more than 700 of those kills. But here's the chilling part. 73% of British pilots never saw the enemy that killed them. They weren't outgunned. They weren't outmaneuvered. They were being murdered from a blind spot they couldn't escape. The Hawker Hurricane, Britain's workhorse, had a fatal flaw. Behind the pilot's armored headrest was a massive 90-degree blind cone. German pilots trained ruthlessly to exploit that exact angle. They'd slip into the cone, close to 200 yards, and fire one burst. The British pilot never had a chance. By October 1940, the average life expectancy of a Hurricane pilot was just 87 flying hours. That's 3 or 4 weeks. Barely enough time to learn your squadron's names. Across the channel, Hitler's invasion barges were already forming. Britain needed a miracle, and it needed one fast. So, in August 1940, Britain gathered its greatest scientific minds at Farn. Vice Marshal Trafford Leigh-Mallory laid down the hard truth. We are losing the visibility war. The meeting turned grim. The consensus was clear. There was no quick fix. Redesign the entire canopy. That would take 18 months. Minimum. Britain would be conquered by then. What about adding mirrors? Wind tunnel tests showed they reduced top speed by 4 miles per hour. In a dogfight, 4 miles per hour is the difference between life and death. Install rear-facing cameras. The technology didn't even exist yet. Finally, Henry Tizard, one of Britain's top scientists, ended the debate with what felt like a death sentence. The design is fixed. There is no solution. The experts had surrendered to physics. The RAF would simply have to lose pilots until the Spitfire could replace the Hurricane, sometime in 1941. Britain was told to accept the slaughter, but not everyone agreed. Miles away in Brooklands, a quiet self-taught engineer was listening to pilots complain. His name was Frederick George Miles. He had no degree and no formal training, whose instinct and the burning curiosity to always ask, why? One afternoon, a pilot named James Nicholson was describing a dogfight. He said, "I could feel him back there, but I couldn't see him without breaking formation." That one sentence wouldn't leave Miles's head. Invisible turbulence. Something was disturbing the air behind the Hurricane. He remembered watching cloth flutter during storms, how disturbed air revealed itself in ripples and vibrations. Then it hit him. Every aircraft leaves a wake. If a Bf-109 approaches from behind, it has to fly through that disturbed air. What if the Hurricane could see that disturbance? Not with eyes, but with fabric. He ran to his workbench, grabbed some cotton cloth and piano wire, and worked until midnight. He built 2 strips, 18 inches long and 3 inches wide, with quick-release mounts. He called it the airflow warning device. The cost was 11 shillings. The weight, a mere 4 ounces. It was absurd, ridiculous, and completely impossible. Unless, of course, it worked. Test pilot George Bullman stared at the strips taped to a Hurricane's wings. "I'm not flying with ladies' handkerchiefs on my aircraft," he scoffed. Miles fired back. 87 hours. "George, that's the average life expectancy now." Bullman sighed. "If this works, you get no credit. I'm not attaching my name to anything this bloody ridiculous." They took off, and every single time a chase aircraft tried to slip into the blind cone, the strips went mad. Left strip fluttering. Enemy on the left quarter. Right strip rippling. Enemy closing from the right quarter. Both vibrating violently. Enemy dead astern. seconds from firing. Bowman landed, pale and silent. He didn't admit defeat. He just said, "Show this to Fighter Command." But the Air Ministry laughed Miles right out of the room. They called his idea impossible, unscientific, and a joke. Until Hugh Dowding walked in. The man responsible for defending Britain looked at the strips. "I don't care if they look absurd," he said. "I care if pilots stop dying." He demanded a live test, and he called on one man to fly it. Squadron leader Douglas Baddour, the legendary ace with no legs and no patience for nonsense. 2 Hurricanes tried to sneak up on him. Bader couldn't see them, but the strips could. The left one fluttered. A broke left an enemy fighter flashed by. Both strips started vibrating. He rolled and dived. The enemy overshot. Bader landed, climbed out of his cockpit, and asked one simple question. "How soon can we put these on every Hurricane in Fighter Command?" Formal testing proved overwhelming. The detection rate for unseen attackers jumped from 31% to 89%. Pilots got an extra 140 yards of warning. That's 2 full seconds to difference between life and death. Dowding approved immediate mass production. By late October, Hurricanes all across Britain carried the strips, hidden in plain sight. They were silent guardians. On October 4th, Pilot Officer Eric Locke flew with the device for the first time. A Bf-109 slipped behind him. He didn't see it, but the strips exploded in motion. He broke right. The 109's cannon shells passed exactly where his cockpit had been 1 second earlier. Elataire sighed. "I saw him coming. Not with my eyes, with those bloody strips." He survived and went on to become one of the RAV's top aces. Luftwaffe pilots started to panic. The kill ratios shifted. German intelligence wrote reports speculating that British fighters appeared to possess a new type of rearward radar. They never guessed it was nothing more than cotton. By November, Hurricane losses had fallen by 40%. An entire generation of British pilots lived to fight another day, all because of 11 shillings of fabric. After the war, the Air Ministry tried to award Miles the Order of the British Empire. He refused. "I made strips of cloth," he said. "Pilots save lives. Honor them, not me." He died in 1976, his incredible invention reduced to a single sentence in his obituary. But in 2003, surviving Battle of Britain pilots gathered at They unveiled a plaque dedicated to Frederick George Miles, 1906. A 1976. His strips gave us, those seconds gave us our lives. Sometimes the greatest weapon in a world war isn't a Spitfire, or a radar station, or a new engine. Sometimes it is just a scrap of fabric, and the courage to ask a question no expert dared to ask. And that is the forgotten miracle of the 11 shilling invention that saved Britain. If this story stunned you, hit like, so YouTube knows you want more forgotten World War II secrets. Subscribe to WWII Forgotten Pages, where the world's buried history finally speaks again. And comment forgotten if you want the follow-up episode on the inventions experts rejected that changed the entire war.